Welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Dive Bomb Industries. Squad Fest, third weekend in July, correct?
Yeah, 19th and 20th, I believe.
Come by and see me and Andy.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not wrong by much. It's in July.
I think you're pretty close on the dates, too. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world-famous Andy Shaver. How's life today?
Good. Busy day. Another busy day.
You got a rainy, wet weekend of turkey hunting.
We got some of that Scottish weather coming up.
Good old rain. Going to be 52 degrees for the high on Saturday. That's crazy. It was 90 degrees.
Might as well be in the Highlands of Scotland.
I'm telling you, I wish I was in the Highlands of Scotland. With us today from, I don't know, are you in the Highlands of Scotland or the lowlands of Scotland?
It's actually the low. We're kind of like just on the cusp. We're kind of close to being in the Highlands. So we'd be like, I don't know, kind of 45, 50 minutes away from there. So kind of almost there.
Our friend, Mr. Kristian Lilley in Aberdeen. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I'm going to go to Scotland. I was hoping to go this summer. It's probably going to be next summer before I get to go. I got way too much stuff going on. I want to go see the Highlands and just drive through the country. How hard is it to get adjusted for you driving in America? Is it going to be for me to get used to driving on the wrong side of the road up there all the time? Because that's my biggest fear.
I mean, I think, to be honest, you'd be fine. The biggest deal that everyone always goes on about is that depending whether you're going to be in like a stick or manual versus like an automatic is kind of the one that seems to throw everybody, because we get a lot of guys that come over and everyone likes the idea of, you know, getting their own rental and stuff. And then when they remember we have all the roundabouts, so like, again, it's something that like you guys don't seem to have as much of. Like when I've been over there, I think I've only been on like a few places that have like roundabouts. And for me, it's a weird deal because I'm doing it backwards, kind of from my side of things, but then you're trying to, you know, remember that. But it's like, to be fair, once you've like had a day or so there, you do get used to it. It's like, I would say it's not as bad as everyone seems to think. So I think you'd honestly be fine. And even if you weren't, you know, that's why you have insurance. You'll be fine.
I look like Chevy Chase in European Vacation, wreck everybody, run over everybody.
Can you drive a stick?
Well, yeah, I'm fucking 50-something years old. Everybody my age can drive a stick.
Oh, I didn't know.
Tony, my brother was parking cars at the prom the other day.
Oh,
and
really?
Jay Rick pulled up, and he goes, that's a standard. Do you know how to drive one of those?
I think I can handle it.
And then Tony hopped it.
Oh, he did?
He did.
Well, in all fairness, like if you haven't driven a stick in a while, you're gonna do that the first couple of times, because I mean you just got to get the mechanisms down, because it's a learned talent. My wife had one. She one of her first cars was a stick. She loved it. You know, you feel like you're in Fast and the Furious and you're fucking shifting gears and just riding down the road.
I would love to drive an old man. Two of my first vehicles were stick. I had a pickup.
That was much more common back in the day. Was it? You think it was 50-50 back in the day?
Probably more. Probably it cost extra to get automatic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My first truck I had was a 3 on the floor, or 3 on the tree. And I loved driving that just because it was so cool. And I would like to drive one again. And then my next truck was on the floor. And then I had a sports car, and it had was manual. So I guess 3 of my first 4 vehicles were all manual. And I liked it. It's pretty cool. So everything over there is manual? Or most everything?
I would say, I mean, we do have a lot of automatic as well, but like most of the car, just depending and stuff, kind of, if you're going to get like smaller cars, a lot of those are kind of, I would still say they're manual. But if you're going to get some of the bigger stuff, then yeah, there's like obviously automatics as well too. So you would be safe enough. I just kind of like to bust your balls, because I like the idea of everybody coming over and just fucking crunching the gears. Like if you can't find it, grind it. Like it's funny, like just watching folks in, like when I've got the Land Rover quite often people want to have a go and, you know, try and drive that in the field. And I actually remember the first time we had, I think it was Cody from Die Bomb over, and that was kind of one of his things. He wanted to jump in there and drive my big blue Landy, and he like loved going to grab it and bring it back to the spread and stuff there just to get it going, because you know it takes a minute to remember, but once you get going, it's you know, it's kind of normal. It's fun to kind of, you know, drive them again, and the difference, but it's just getting used to being on the other side of the, you know, the truck as well, to figure that one out, and then being
that. Now you're shifting with your left hand.
Oh, that would be a real fuck up deal.
Yeah.
Are the feet different also?
Exactly.
So is your
it's
what would it be?
still the same, but then obviously you're having to remember, because like you guys wouldn't have your clutch, but you have to remember about your clutch, you know, down there for changing the gear. So you're kind of still doing
everything. The gas different, because here the gas is on the right? So the clutch would be with your left foot. So is the gas on the left and the clutch on the right?
Yeah.
Oh,
the gas is on the left.
Yeah, you know, gas is still on the right. So your clutch, you're still clutching.
That would be easy.
But you're doing it with your left hand.
You're kind of doing that, but that, you know, from that side, which it is. Once you get used to it, first you're kind of like, it's like me when I first, you know, head over to the States and I jump in a truck over there again. I have to remind myself, okay, because I did have an automatic 2 seasons ago as well. My other Scout truck was automatic, so it got me used to driving automatics. But even for the first couple of weeks, when I jumped between my Land Rover and then my other Ford Ranger, I was having to get used to kind of, you know, remembering to change gear and stuff. It makes you like a lazy driver. You know, but then when you start doing it backwards, having to go over, you know, your side and drive on the right hand side, and then also remember that obviously you're changing your positioning where you are. It feels weird for like the first couple hours, and then if you're pulling a trailer, like when I went to Nebraska this spring to pick up the truck and trailer to drive down to Arkansas, I'd literally been on the plane 17, 18 hours, touchdown. My buddy came and picked me up, and we drove back to his, and then headed out like 6 hours later to drive down to Arkansas. It was like, I think, a 13-hour drive, and for the first couple hours, I was just like both hands in the wheel, like this, you know. It was, but you get used to it pretty quick.
Did you have jet lag out the ass on that trip? I mean, that's a lot of travel and not much adjustment period.
It was, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. It was pretty fucking rough, because obviously over here I was used to my getting up 2:30, 3 o'clock, whenever it was, and like once I'm in the zone, like my body just gets me up from like midnight almost every single day between there and like 3, whatever my alarm goes off. I'm up before then, so it took me a minute to adjust, and then I had to adjust to like Arkansas time for that, and then my body had to adjust like to the same like sleep pattern between midnight and 3 or 2:30 whenever we're waking up over there. So that probably took me like longer. That was like a 2-week kind of deal. But then once I got in the rhythm of it, like, because you're just so used to like not really sleeping, you know. But then when you do sleep, when you go to sleep at like, I don't know, 9, 10 o'clock, it's like you sleep pretty hard, you know, for a couple hours, and then it's almost like you just get, you know, used to it, and you're good to go, and you know, you're kind of almost waiting for the alarm to wake you up, and you're like, oh shit, you're up before the alarm, and before you know it, it's kind of back to setting spreads, and you know, it just works.
Now, what's easier? Is it easier going backwards in time or forward in time? Like where do you get messed up the most at?
I probably, when I first come over, when you go back, I find it easier that way. It's like I got back the weekend there from Florida, and I would say that it's been tougher for me because I'm trying to adjust back into my normal Scottish time, and then it's like, let's say 9 o'clock over here. It's still super early back there, so like I don't want to sleep.
Right.
So, you know, you're trying to get yourself to go to sleep, but then you've got the distractions of like your phone or emails or whatever, and you're trying to sleep before midnight. But then the first kind of like, I'm kind of getting there kind of now, but even still, I would say like last night I was like, oh shit, it's like almost like midnight, and it still feels like it's super early, right, you know, with Florida time. But it depends what you're doing. It like, because I'm just preparing for my Roe Buck season for next week, it's like still kind of downtime. But if I was going to be doing stuff and so on, yeah, it would be like, yeah, it'd be a
Yeah.
deal.
So what time, like on a normal goose hunt over there, what time are you getting up and going?
Just depends, like distance we're going in the morning, the spread we're setting, but I would say anywhere from like 2:30 to kind of 3:30 in the morning is going to be kind of normal. From that kind of side, it's like, for depending on the size of spread, the journey, whether the clients are helping, whether it's just, myself and another guide or whatever it might be. So it kind of varies, but probably like the same kind of times over there, which is good because I mean, you're pretty much ready to go. The excitement's there, so it's like you just get in the routine, and it becomes everyday life.
Yeah, that's what's crazy though. Is like 3:30 for you is 9:30 for us.
Oh, it would screw me up big time.
Like you're getting going, and then we're going. That's about the time we go to bed during hunting season.
It's like the
I
West.
try to.
Just the 2 hours on the West Coast makes a big difference for me.
I hate the West Coast time because I always feel like I'm behind everybody. You know what I mean? Anytime I've been to the West Coast, it's 7 o'clock there. Well, it's 9 o'clock here, and it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast, and everybody's already got their day going. Like anytime I've been on the West Coast, I've always felt like I was behind in the day.
You just messed my time up. I got a question for you about Scotland. So, the Queen of England, does she rule, or did she rule over Scotland also?
Y'all are in the EU, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, not anymore. That's like was the whole deal.
That's right.
I mean, that seems with the whole Brexit. I mean, that
Brexit.
seems like ages ago. So it's a weird one, or kind of weird, I guess, that it's confusing to everyone else, I would say, unless you're like really into the whole thing. So obviously it would be the UK, United Kingdom, or Britain, which obviously encompasses England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. So we're all under the same, kind of category as like United Kingdom, UK, but then each of those were still separate countries, like Scotland, Northern Ireland, England.
So
Wales. So we have our own governments under there too, just to confuse it further. So the royal family, which would now be, the king, he would still essentially like govern. I mean, it's not really like governing, but obviously with the royal family there, it's like it still encompasses the whole of the UK, from that kind of side of things. So even though they don't really play a part in the government side of things, like per se themselves, it's still each government for like Scotland, Wales, England, Northern Ireland, they all kind of add their own piece into the ruling of each country from there, which it's probably better that way, that the royal family aren't immediately involved like that too. Otherwise it would just make it crazy. And I think that's probably another side of things why some people, they either are extremely for like the whole royal family thing, or not. It's one of those deals that like it's people either really do love it or they hate it, like because it's almost like very few places that would still have something like that. And we do take a lot of shit for that, but then at the same time, I guess you could say it's kind of a cool thing to have in terms of it sets the UK aside, and it's a big deal. People love to come over to the UK for it, and they want to go to the palace and everything else. And we've obviously got Balmoral Castle.
That's what I was asking. That's what I was going to ask you about. So that is in Scotland in the Highlands, right? And that's kind of out with the Highlands. So that's closest to us. We're like 30 minutes away from there, which is pretty cool. I would say a lot of our clients that come over, they're usually going up to Balmoral Castle for a tour. You can do quite a few tours up there. I mean, it's like we actually hunt up on Royal D side, quite a bit for waterfowl. Like we probably have probably one of the best places you could hunt for waterfowl, like on that part of the the world, if you like, from there in Royal D side. So it's kind of cool to say that you've hunted up there. A lot of it's more like moorland and hill ground, so it's like stag country. Stag and grouse, so it'd be kind of bigger for like that side of things. It's a pretty cool place for the history side of things. I would like to see it. That's when we go to Scotland, that is one of the places. I don't give two shits about going to seeing Westminster Abbey and the Buckingham Palace and all that other crap. And I don't want to go to London. I would like to go to Harrods in London. Would be one of the things I'd like to see. But I would more enjoy going to Scotland and the Highlands and driving around. And I just think it's amazing to see places where there's buildings are 1,000-year old. You know, when we go to the East Coast of the United States and we see a building built in 1600s, I'm like, wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I can't imagine something built 1,500 years ago.
And they didn't have an engineering degree when they built this. Can you imagine? How is it still standing?
Craftsmanship.
It's pretty cool when you come up and you see these places, because then you have to remember, like you're saying there, with like the whole idea of who built them, how the stuff got there. It's like our walls that we have, those big, dry stain dike walls where, there wasn't machines to go move all these things where they've finally come to lay. Like, it's been, years in the making of those things, and the fact that they're still standing, it's pretty cool.
So basically your government, if I've got this right, it's kind of like states here in the United States. Like each state's a little bit different in the way they run their everyday thing, but they're all encompassed under the United States.
Yeah, exactly same as that. Like, I've seen it when I was over there. You've got your governor of Florida and stuff doing their thing. It's the exact same thing. It's probably better that we've only got like a few, the 4 countries, rather than you guys with all those states. I mean, that's like a head fuck for me to think you have so many people, and everyone seems to be doing, different. Like, I've seen it myself. I've been to New York. Like, I'd only been to places to hunt, so like South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, all those places. So I was just used to hunting. I've never been in a Walmart where you didn't not have guns, where you couldn't just buy like some supplies, and then if you wanted to see guns, it's just normal. But then, when I went to New York for the first time, I mean, it was my kind of last time as well, probably. I was just like, this is fucking weird. And it's, I obviously when we follow along with everything you see, and it's like you see exactly how things change. Even since, I mean, that was like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. But then see where things are at now, and to see which states are just fucking crazy. I'm just like, yeah, I'm glad we've only got the 4 countries to worry about. That's enough.
So I assume you were in New York City, right? Yeah.
And then I know that's different. Like, I know it's kind of different when you venture out to different parts too. So I know it's not everywhere is obviously fully crazy.
No, you get upstate New York, it's beautiful and the people are super nice. It's that way anywhere in the United States. You get outside of the urban areas and everybody's alike. Mm-hmm. Everybody's a Texan when you get outside of the big metropolitan areas. Everywhere. They all think the same. We all have the same goals. We just want the same thing. We want our freedoms and everything else. New York City is not that at all.
And you saw New York City when it was still relatively normal. Like, I can't imagine what it looks like today. Like, if you went 6 years ago, New York is not the same place as it was 6 years ago.
Yeah, everyone said the same thing. That even like from what I saw, I'm just like I'm a country person anyway. Like the outdoors, cities and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's cool to see different places, but like if you were passing through, like that was enough. Like, it was still cool to see. But it was so busy. It was like after Christmas, it was like a nice kind of deal to go up there when it was kind of like, it was still wintry and snowy. But I mean, for what it was, I was like, yeah, cool. I've ticked it off the list. I don't need to go back. I mean, even still when I was there, I was like, well, maybe I could still fit some snow geese in. That was kind of what my thoughts were at the time. And it's still, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's cooler. The idea, like, I still would want to say I would visit the hunt, East Coast kind of deal would be, kind of cool. But in terms of cities, I think once you've seen what you want to from there and so on, it's like, yeah, it was fine for what it was. But, I wouldn't be rushing back. And even then, it was like, we were in Florida, and honestly, like the amount of Uber drivers that were from, New York, they were like, yeah, we were there. And they're like, nah, fuck it. We've moved to Florida for a much better life down here. They're like, it's just getting crazy back there. So it's funny that like even a lot of those guys, where there were so many of them, were kind of saying some of the same things. It's like, yeah, it's a different vibe, and so on. But I mean, hey, it's the same. You could say the same over here for like living in Scotland, England, Wales. Especially England. It's a lot of cities down there, like we discussed before, and it can be equally pretty crazy down there in some places. And it's just getting busier and busier in a lot of these cities, and I don't think it's going to change much.
No, New York City though, in the 70s, New York City was a real shithole.
Yeah, terrible.
And Giuliani cleaned all that up, and they made it a really nice, thriving place. I was there. I've been there 3 times in the last 16 to 18 months. Progressively seen changes getting worse the last time I was there.
I think it's unrecognizable even from the last time you were there.
I think you're correct.
I mean, what, thousands of illegal immigrants went to like City Hall or something because they were staying at a shelter instead of the Four Seasons that they were promised when they came over here?
I saw a lady from the Congo was raising hell yesterday at a council meeting in New York City. She said there's 500 languages in the Congo, and the city of New York doesn't have translators for all of them, and they need to get with the program. Go back to fucking Congo, lady. You know? This is the United States of America. We speak English. If you don't like it, fucking move. It's real simple. I don't understand why we have to kiss everybody's ass. We live on the border of Mexico. It's to our benefit to be able to speak Spanish and communicate, because we got a lot of Mexicans that live here that work here and stuff. But we in school should only teach English. That's what it's about. If you want to take Spanish as an elective, I got no problem with that. I think you're smart to learn Spanish if you live down here. But it's not our language. You shouldn't, our language is English. If you don't want to we don't speak Jiu-Jitsu or whatever the fuck they speak in the Congo, go back to the fucking Congo. You know? I'm sure we can collect some fucking money in about 10 minutes and buy your whole fucking tribe a ticket and send your ass back. We don't want you here. But we're tired of this shit. I'm telling you right now, on behalf of 51% of the people in this country, we've had enough of this shit. Just like in England. I'll bet you if you could get people in London, England to talk and be honest and not worry about getting in trouble, they tell you they're sick of the fucking Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, I know. It's kind of one of those things that it's like, we see it a bunch, obviously, with, the border kind of deal. It's the same kind of thing as over here in terms of everyone that's coming from, like, especially France, coming over. It's the same thing. I literally saw it on Instagram this morning. Another thing it was a boat that is just coming haul ass and flying towards the beach, and it like hits the beach, and there must have been like 20, 30, like a speedboat kind of deal.
It was in California.
Yeah.
No,
and it was almost
was it over there?
Yeah, well, it was over your side, but I saw it on Instagram, so but it's the same kind of, deal. Obviously, like they come over on, tiny, it's crazy little dinghies and rafts and stuff, like, and as like once they get past a certain point, I think the way it works is, I guess, they're in our kind of waters now, so it's our problem. Right. So, but then the way it goes down over here, it's the same with you guys too. It's like, well, okay, you're here now, but then you're welcome with, open arms to kind of coming here, and you get a house and you get everything else that goes with it. And, obviously it does create like it's a bad vibe for everyone over here. And yeah, it's all very well. I understand. It's kind of like what you're saying. If you're going to come over here and so on, then, there's plenty of people that do come over here and they want to work and they want to, graft and, make it their own, which is fine. I respect that and so on. But what I, don't like is when people come over here and they just expect handouts, but then they do absolutely better than people that are, they're busting their ass. And, they've, especially, it's the same over there with you guys, that people that have served in the wars, veterans and so on too, there's a lot more care for other people that have just, come here for seeking a better life, that haven't really given anything back. And I think there's a lot of, it goes both ways with, people saying, oh, we don't do enough to support this and that, and you could say whatever, but then it's the genuine fact of it that, you're coming here, it's setting an example that you just come here and you can do nothing and get everything. But then if you work hard, that you're not being, rewarded the way you should be, and the standard of living and everything else is, it's becoming more and more expensive over here. It's the same with over there with you guys too. But then it's kind of like, well, how is it working out like this? It's just fucking crazy. It's not
working out, and we don't know them shit. And it's not a two-way deal. It's not like, well, we can see both sides. There's not two sides. You want to come to our fucking country? Become part of our country. Just like my ancestors did when they came here from the Italy in the 30s. They become part of the culture here. They work themselves up. They become part of it. They didn't come over here looking up for handouts.
Well, they didn't come over here to recreate what they had over there.
No, they wanted the American dream, to work hard, have freedom, be able to have a lot better life than they did growing up, and for their kids to have a better life. But, and people are like, well, we need to blend everybody in. No, bullshit on that blending crap. There's a reason there's a Chinatown in New York and a Little Italy and stuff. Those people got off those ships, and they got in groups of their own people where they were comfortable, and that's what they wanted to do. you know? And it should be that way everywhere. If you want to go and mix up, then do that. But don't force people into other situations. I mean, it's not fair if you live in Manhattan right now and you've spent all that money to have a nice apartment, a condo, a house, whatever it is, and then they're going to bring in 1,500 fucking people from the Congo and stick in your building and let them live free. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You busted your ass to get to Manhattan out of Queens or the Bronx or whatever. And it's that way everywhere, and they're flooding our country, and it's because the politicians don't give two shits about the United States of America. They only give a shit about getting voted in again. That's all they do. They work for 4 years to get reelected all the time so they can pad their wallet and crap. They don't care about this. Then they go on vacation and they go to Martha's Vineyard or Newport, Rhode Island, and these big hoity-toity places where there aren't any immigrants or nothing, because when they get immigrants at Martha's Vineyard, they ship them out of there because they don't want them there. But I'm tired of it. I feel so sorry for the people that are trapped in New York City that have been there their whole lives, that can't afford to get out, that are getting infiltrated with all this bullshit like I do every other city. I feel sorry for the people that live in Chicago, that have lived there forever, that don't live in the upper crust nice neighborhoods. It's a bullshit deal, and I feel sorry for the people in Europe, except for the people in Poland and Switzerland who have kept them some bitches out of there, I think. I know Poland has for sure. Japan is the greatest place to live because they don't have nothing but Japanese people.
Right.
And there's no problems there.
Well, if you're Japanese.
Well, but I mean, but you should be rewarded for work. You shouldn't be rewarded for coming over here. When I was a kid growing up, we had Mexicans that were here. Just like we have, well, let me rephrase that there. We had Mexican people that were here, not Hispanics. They're Mexicans. They're from Mexico. They've been here as longer than we've ever been here. They're United States citizens. Then we had the people that would come across the border that would come to work, the illegals. And you know what? Those people weren't coming here to do bad things. They were coming here to get better off and get ahead. They come over here to work. They didn't cause problems. Crime didn't go up. Nothing was changed. They came here to work. We need those people to come here to work because Americans are fucking lazy and they don't want to fucking do shit. So we need the laborers that want to come over here and work. They get paid a fair wage. They can afford to live. Now there's not a fair wage because nobody can afford to live. So how we got off on this from going to Scotland, I have no idea. But.
Do you go to Glasgow much?
To be honest, no, not as much. I mean, when I was younger, I studied down there. Went to Glasgow Uni, so I think I was there for like 4 years studying, and then I think maybe like another year or something after, maybe 2 years. So I mean, it's actually a pretty cool place. I would say it'd be one of the bigger cities. You've obviously got Aberdeen, where I live, main places that are more central kind of West Coast kind of area. And yeah, Glasgow's definitely a good place.
Now, is it is it a dangerous place?
There'd be some places that could be. I say you would be a bit more, just have to keep on your toes. But then it's the same, you could say, as Edinburgh too. There would be places there you just need to be careful where you go, and then same with Aberdeen too.
Right.
But yeah, I would say it would be probably one of the better places compared to Aberdeen, where I am. You've got, I mean, it's not too big, but then there's still places you would say would be kind of slightly rougher, than others.
Well, I watched. So it's funny. I've been on an Anthony Bourdain kick, and all of his shows are on HBO Max. So I watched a show on Scotland, and Glasgow is split east to west. East side's the bad part. West side's the good part. And it's just funny the way that those two sides of town kind of clash in the way that they live.
Yeah, that would be true enough. Exactly. I just said we'd have been on the west side.
Yeah.
East side still was fine enough, but then you've obviously got the south as well, and that would be more kind of your Jeff's kind of favorite place. It'd be lots of Muslims and so on over there for him to go and see.
Go visit them.
It's and that's, I think I said that last time, where when I first went down there, and I'd never, obviously, I mean, Aberdeen, it was this was years ago too. And there, I would say over the years, obviously, like we said before, all these other places just keep building and building and building. And even then, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, it was the first kind of place where I would say, obviously, I'm not white looking, I'm tanned anyway, but you would be one of the few, white people that kind of stuck out kind of thing, as if, when you were there. And from all those years ago, it was definitely something where I'd never seen anything like it. But then equally, people had been there for a long, long time, where you'd be getting, obviously plenty of people that from different countries and so on living down there, but they've been there long enough that their accents was proper Glaswegian accent. Like if you spoke to someone on the phone, it's the same thing when people speak to me. Obviously, I don't look like I'm from Scotland.
Right.
And then, I rock up and they're like, whoa, it's the same, and I get it now. It's the same thing when I spoke to someone. I don't know what it was. It was something about uni. I remember speaking to the person, and then I went to meet them in real life. It was a lecture or whatever it was. And I was like, oh, shit. I was like, I didn't expect him, and he didn't even have a name that you would think that would correspond to, like, so I guess it taught me a lot with that too. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty, awesome people from whatever part of the world they're from, and so on too. But then equally, it's amazing just how there can be such a divide in a lot of these places. Yeah. And from that side. But yeah, no, definitely, I would say you hit it pretty spot on. The west side of Glasgow was, it was one of the better places to be for sure.
Do you know what the life expectancy is? The average life expectancy of a male Glaswegian?
I'm going to guess 66.
55 years old.
Wow.
Do you know what it is in Fallujah?
In Afghanistan?
Iraq?
I guess it's going to be 58 or more.
65.
So
you live longer if you're from Fallujah than you do if you're a male from Glasgow. I learned that on the Anthony Bourdain thing because he was having dinner with a lady and she was like,
"Is it their foods?
Women have had to take like the backbone of the family role here in Glasgow because the men were always drunk and dying early on the shipyards."
So building ships is a dangerous job, and they drink a lot.
We get into a lot of bar fights.
I mean, I would say, I would have put it down to some booze-related thing. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely, like, Glasgow's a party town. Yeah. Both that and Edinburgh. I mean, like, those were, I mean, you went and roamed everywhere. The west side, east side, you were just, wherever the clubs were and bars, pubs, you can't go 100 meters without there being some kind of pub somewhere on the corner.
Is that 100 yards?
We used to do a thing where it was called like a sub crawl. Mm-hmm. You took the subway and you went around like as a big circuit that was there, and you did that as like a pub crawl. Like, I mean, it was just you went and got mashed up, and then you went out. You did that as like your warm up during the day to then do that tonight. I mean, that was always a favorite.
What is your so do you drink Guinness? Is that your beer you drink?
Our beer that we'd have over there, which is actually from Glasgow, is Tennent's. So I would still say it's like a kind of, it'd be like a stronger kind of, I don't know, like a stronger kind of Coors kind of deal or anything like, just like Bush, anything you have over there, just a stronger.
A little bit stronger though.
Yeah, it is, because I would say all our beer is definitely stronger, and you notice that, like, guys will say that they'll obviously. We have other stuff up here in our area which is called Brewdog, and that stuff's like rocket fuel. It's like, I want to say 12 to 15% in some of these cans. Ooh. And it's strong stuff, but it tastes like shit. So I mean, it's kind of, I think it's a big deal now where a lot of these microbrewery places. So I would say they're kind of picking up in all the areas. So each place is going to have its own kind of microbreweries, but Tennent's would be your big one. But like Guinness is that's more Irish. Oh. So more of the leprechauns kind of drink over there. But that's like that's like a meal in itself too. If you have a Guinness, then you're also having some dinner as well. It's like you've got to be in the right mood for that. Like, I've seen guys that they just absolutely hammer them. I mean, I'm like, I'd rather drink whiskey. Like, that's my thing, obviously, from there. So like a good West Coast whiskey, like Bowmore. Like, if you ever do come over here, you want to go to the West Coast. Like, you've got islands out there. Islay and Skye, all these really cool places, and the distilleries there. Yeah, I mean, we have distilleries everywhere. You could just come over and do literally like a full whiskey tour.
You said
like there's a
you said Skye, like Skye vodka that's made there.
It's different. Like, I do know there's Skye vodka too, but like it would be like Skye would be kind of closer towards Inverness, kind of West Coast side. So look it up. It's a really cool place.
Looking up Balmoral right now.
Balmore. So here's my question. So like Scotch is expensive over here. Is it
Good Scotch is that JB shit that you drink in Cuddy Sark, not expensive.
But like Glenlivet, all that shit it's expensive over
Yes.
here. Is it like, since that's your native drink, is it fairly cheap over there?
Yeah, I would say it is like a standard. It's funny because like the last few times I've been over in the States, we go and pick up, because it's weird over there. You guys have to get your liquor from liquor stores. Like we just go into like a Walmart kind of deal, and you can buy everything and anything you want. We just have weird times where you can buy after 9 o'clock every single day, apart from like a Sunday. You have to wait till 11 o'clock. I mean, I don't know the difference of a couple hours.
Right.
You should, maybe they're trying to tell you should be at church. You shouldn't be trying to get pissed up and whiskey and vodka in the morning. But like over here, I would say you're going to get everything cheaper, but then you're starting to get like other more well-known brands over there too. And I would say that I looked at them and I was like, yeah, they're definitely like another $20-$30 more expensive. But even still, I would say they're not like the best ones. And then I went to, I can't remember where I was, but I was like a kind of like a decent kind of liquor store. And, we were just in there buying whatever, I think for some clients. And I thought, I'm going to have a look at these. And yeah, I mean, I had a look at like what I would normally drink. And they did have some bottles there, €20 bottles. And they were fucking crazy. Price wise, I was like, I'm going to bring some of these over from Scotland and sell them on. Like that's how much they were. But even then we have like a limit of what we can take over with us too. Cause I've used to do that a lot, bring over, when I first came over, like for the guides and stuff, bring over bottles, and it would depend how big the bottles were. But then if they were too big, they would pull the bottles from your bag. So I would get there and there would be a note saying we've taken out X amount, because of the customs deal.
Yeah.
So I gave up doing that. Now I'll just take like a bottle or two over with me, for when I go over anyway, with, when we're in Arkansas and stuff. And, but to be fair, it's like, there's usually enough booze there anyway. And like, you can go to the store and get like Glenlivet and like Glenmorangie and like some bottles, like, 'cause even then a lot of the guys have like poured a drink and I'm looking around and they're away to pour like fucking soda in there too. I'm like, what you're just wasting my like $200 whiskey for throwing some Coke in there or whatever. So like cheap whiskey, I think it's like fine,
So Balmoral is the whiskey that you, or the Scotch that you like?
Oh, Bowmore. It's called Bowmore.
How do you spell that? Bowmore?
So it's Bowmore. Bowmore.
Oh, I'd have never got that right.
Okay, I got you.
So is that a whiskey or a Scotch? Because there's Jameson is whiskey.
That's Irish.
Yeah, that's
Irish,
like
right? But is it Scottish
proper,
whiskey?
That's a proper single malt kind of deal. So that's like the real deal. Like, so yeah, I would call that anything. You've obviously got Jameson, and then you've got like, Famous Grouse and stuff. I actually think that's maybe still like we would definitely call that, like over here you'd say that's like a cooking whiskey, because it's like, it's kind of cheap, shitty kind of stuff. But it would still be one that the people try and market for, it's a whiskey you want to take. But if you come over here, that's the kind of whiskey you would drink with like 7-Up or Coke or some kind of soda. You wouldn't care about mixing that if you did. But like that would just be like a normal whiskey to us. But they do malt versions, I think, of that. Because I want to say that likes of like Famous Grouse and other things, it's a blend. Like so they've blended together like a heap of other kind of different whiskeys and stuff. And it's like, if you were drunk enough, you'd probably drink it, okay? But if you had the choice, you'd be like, nah, you're not going to drink that.
So is Bowmore your favorite Scotch whiskey?
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Which one? Yeah, because I'm seeing a couple here. Now I'm gonna get a bottle here. I see a 15-year-old sherry cask, single malt.
That's a good... See, that's like a starter. That one there, I would say you can't go wrong with that.
Okay.
Because all it's going to do, I will say, with this particular one, it's like kind of smoky. So if you like it, it's because of the peat. Obviously, over there with the islands, it's a big deal. That's where a lot of them, you'll have Bowmore, then you've got Lefroy, Lagavulin, Bunnahabhain. Those can be really peaty, and a lot of people don't like them because they're just too strong. But then I know that a lot of your bourbons would be smokier kind of flavor. So like I did have guys that came over and they were like, oh yeah, man, this is kind of closer to some of the bourbon that we drink, and they really liked it. But it was definitely, when you start to go down that with different casks, the price starts to go up.
Yes.
Like
substantially.
Majorly.
Yeah, like a 25-year-old's $550 here.
And that's what you're buying?
No, fuck no. I was gonna get the 15-year-old.
You don't even like Scotch.
He talked me out of it.
But that's what I'm saying is like over here. That's what I'm saying is those exact kind of deal. That's exactly it. When I was like, that would be still like a couple £100.
Right.
So like if I brought that over, like it's still nothing. Nothing crazy. But then it is a lot more expensive. Probably that even then by the time that comes over and stuff as well, man, for the price would be pretty fucking crazy.
What about an 18? What about the 18-year-old? It's $150.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
Okay.
Any of those ones there, they're really good, and you could just drink it normally.
Andy doesn't like Scotch. That's what's funny about this whole thing. He does not like Scotch.
I could.
You can't. It tastes.
I could.
It's an
I could like
acquired
Scotch.
taste. You thought you was going to like the drink that Anthony Bourdain, other thing he got you to drink.
The Negroni?
Yeah. Hey, when you drink, this is my question about Guinness. When you drink Guinness, do you drink it cold, or is it room temp?
It's meant to be room temperature, but which I mean, I would rather. That's what I'm saying is like, you could argue with people with the whole fucking fiasco of just pouring the drink. I'm like, I'm not gonna enjoy it if people's having like a round of Guinness. If you do that, everyone's like, it's like anywhere else. You're sociable, like buy a round. Yeah. And I'd be like, yeah, I'd have Guinness if we're doing that. Or if it's like, I don't know, some kind of occasion, like an Irish night or it's St. Paddy's or whatever. You're going to do, because like we do have a few of the guys that like just really like it. But then I'd rather have it cold if it was going to be anything else rather than having like a warm one, because it's already heavy going as it is, and to have that warm, it just sounds fucking terrible.
I can't drink it. Stuff's nasty. I've only taken a sip of it once, and I'm not a big dark beer drinker. I'm not a dark beer drinker at all. I like Mexican beer, and I like Michelob Ultra or Coors Light. That's about it. I'm just not a big beer drinker.
I had a Guinness not too long ago. Maybe it was St. Paddy's Day. I would not want to go get fucked up on Guinness, but I had one, and it wasn't terrible. But it was also cold. It wasn't room temp.
The cold would be the only way I would get it. It had to be ice cold, but it looks to me like just drinking some nasty ass oatmeal in a glass is what it looks like to me.
One was fine. Like I said, I don't want to deal with the hangover on a bunch of Guinness.
No, I would say like after, like when I was at uni, we would just, you just go wild. In fact, I remember in our student bar, they were I think it was like a £2. It was like a couple $2 like a pint Guinness. They were getting rid of the one of the kegs before like the term was finishing. Right. And I remember we used to, like, I think on a Wednesday we used to go and play rugby. So like it was like, off afternoon for the sport. So you'd go and you'd play rugby or whatever other sport, and then you'd go back to the bar for like afternoon. You'd get pissed up for the day. So we were there after one of the games, and oh my god, I mean, I remember I think I was like just going with it, but I 100% remember we just absolutely smashed that to begin with before we went out, and then we went back to like the student accommodation. We drank more then we went out obviously all night and hit the clubs and stuff. And they're like, I mean, even when being a student, you're used to doing that all the time, and you get fucked up and you just get used to it. But I tell you, that night from the Guinness, I remember it, and it was I'm holding the Guinness responsible, nothing else, just the Guinness. But it was like too many, certainly more than 10 pints, which I mean, just I don't even know how it did it. Like I should get like an award for being a survivor or something. But like, if you like it, like I'd say like heavier dark beers, it's now like ales it's a big thing over here where people, they're starting to go down that route with the micro, like the whole brewery thing. Yeah. And if you do like that, it's fine. But like I would agree with you. I would rather have like a Mexican kind of a beer like that. It's or something like that. Even then, it's like I'd rather drink a cider, to be actually honest. Over here, like the cider you have over there, it's weird. Like I think someone very kindly, they were like, "Hey, Scott," they all call me Scotty over there when I go to Arkansas, and they're like, "What you drink?" And I'm like, "Well, whiskey and cider," and they're like, "Well, and they ask about the whiskey, and they're like, "Fuck, was I getting you a whiskey? We're gonna get you a cider instead." And they're nice, and they bring me back like I think it's Angry Orchard or whatever it is. It's fucking terrible, is what it is. So like, when I'm over there, I'll just drink beer. It's fine, but then it really is. It's proper real light beer. It's just kind of it is weird to get used to. Kind of deal, like which is funny, just how like in every country, like everyone's got their go-to kind of stuff. But then it's like world over, Corona. Yeah, you know, you can't go wrong. You know, people just drink it everywhere, and it's like it's like a safe bet. You know, you're gonna go somewhere, and you're like looking at the drinks list, and you're like, oh, and you're like, yeah, Corona, that's fine.
It's always safe. They've got Black Balmore, $30,000.
Yeah. Nuts. Yeah, let's go buy two. Let's go buy two.
Yeah. Jeff, if you're shopping for me, I want two of these. I don't want just one.
I want to see
third of three extraordinary Oloroso cask, 1964 Balmore's released in the mid 1990s. This final batch was of 1812 bottles. So,
do the Kennedys get money off every bottle of Scotch that comes to America? Or is that
I don't know. I'm sure they did during Prohibition. I'm sure during Prohibition they did. I don't know if that's still a thing.
Well, that was bootlegging.
Well, yeah, that's what
then,
Joe Kennedy did.
I thought he still got money off of every bottle. I thought somehow it worked out.
They might. I don't know.
That's the expensive part, is the shipping to America, because Jack Daniels is really popular in China, and it costs a shitload of money to get it over there.
Right.
It's a heavy product. You know, you think about a whole ship of Jack Daniels. Right. It'd be a lot of money to ship just over there.
So what's the difference in Stag and your Roe Bucks that you're getting ready to do?
The biggest thing is going to be size. Like, yeah, Stag is like probably closer to like, say, kind of whitetail size. Obviously like kind of different, like obviously body size and like head and stuff. But I would say it's a bigger, like the Roe Buck would be, I always say like a really massive lab kind of size.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're really, really small. It's probably the biggest one when everyone comes over. We actually take them to our range, just like if they're bringing their own rifles, obviously check them, because you know what, airport people are like, they just, especially if it's a gun, they're going to throw it off the plane and try and run it over and do whatever they do down there. So we always check, scopes are okay. Or let them get used to our rental rifles, and we actually have a full life-size steel Roe Buck target. So we start by driving up to the target, and they're like, wow, this is honestly, and I'm like, yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said it was like almost kind of lab size, and they're like, fuck, my lab's bigger than this, and I'm like, yeah, probably. And it's funny because like I would say they vary in size, but like in terms of like the way their heads are, they're like all very similar in terms of, it's like a standard kind of 6-point kind of look. As where like a stag, obviously, they're more looking like a whitetail, and how they can obviously have different, brow tines and bigger tines and, that kind of size of things. But equally, it's kind of cool that with a Roe Buck, I mean, yeah, you get them all over the UK. They're very big in Europe, but Aberdeenshire, like where we're from, we actually have some of the biggest Roe Buck like in the world, for the size of them. So for like trophy bucks, you've got Aberdeenshire, Fife, Perth, and then other places in England too, where the Roe Buck they grow really big because of the soil pH. Yeah. So the nutrients they get from there, it just kind of makes them into monsters. And even though there's bucks throughout, the UK and Europe and other places, they just don't grow to the same size that ours do. So even though they have like a really small body, you can like see these bucks and you go, oh fuck yeah, that's a big one. So we do get a lot of guys that come over that obviously they hunt, around the world, and it's a big thing for them to tick off their bucket list. So they're like, always a stag. But then with stags, you can obviously, first place most people think would probably be New Zealand, Argentina, and then Scotland would be thrown in there, somewhere too, where our stags, they aren't as big, but then obviously you're chasing them in the hills and stuff, and it's a really cool experience, and it's all free range too. So the majority of it is anyway. There are places now, because of New Zealand, obviously, and even then, I mean, those aren't free range. Those are just big old brutes that have, the lines have been put in there and so on, which it is what it is. But then they've now started to want to do that kind of thing over here, in the UK too.
You mentioned guns being mistreated at the airport. My last turkey hunter that I had here came to go picked him up, and he pulls his gun out of the case. He had a brand new Beretta A400, and where the handle meets the metal, that plastic handle meets the metal, snapped in half. Pulls his gun out, $2,000 gun, comes out in 3 pieces.
They just don't care. I've seen the way like the handle, even if it had like a big fragile sticker on the front of it, they couldn't get.
They throw those harder, I think.
Yeah, I honestly think they do. It probably just gives them the idea, like, I'm just gonna go stamping that instead. Yeah. It's like always the risk, and that's like a big one for us. People always say, about traveling over here with guns. It's actually really easy. It's easier for me to do the paperwork, which is kind of funny, for you guys to bring guns over here than it is for like Europeans to bring their guns into Scotland. But for the hassle you have to go through for, like, if something goes wrong with your gun or whatever else, like I had clients, I think it was last year, they brought the rifles from Sweden or Norway, and 2 of them were they must have been on the same cart or whatever happened, and something happened, but both we had 2 damaged rifles. And it's like, obviously, because it's such a deal over here with the whole idea of our licensing and stuff, it's not like you can just go out and be like, I'm going to buy a replacement of this or that or whatever. It's really, really dumb. So luckily, obviously, we just replaced one of them. They just used one of my rentals. It was fine. And the other guy, he did actually have to go and buy like a whole new mount system, which, we were very lucky that the gun store was able to kind of get him, hooked up with something so quick and everything else. But again, that was like still £400 or £500 later. He got it out of the airline. The guy, it's not like he didn't have the money there in the first place, but it's not the point. Just the hassle, exactly. So then I always say to people, look, if you're more, we have all the gear you need, especially gun wise, of like to save the hassle. Just use ours. Saves bringing your own unless you really, really want to. But it's one of those. When I come to the States, I was always hell bent on bringing guns with me, and now it's not even worth it. For the hassle.
What's the process that you have to go through to get a new gun over there?
If it's a shotgun, you can basically buy, go in the store and say, I want that new Benelli or whatever. But if you were to buy a rifle, on the other hand, man, it's a deal. Like, you have to basically apply to the police for what's called a variation. So they would, let's say you have like a 6.5 PRC, and either you want to replace that or you want to go get Win Mag. You'd have to go to the police and say, okay, I want to buy this 300 Win Mag, and they're going to say, okay, and you're going to have to give them reasoning why you want to buy the Win Mag, where you're probably going to use it, and then if you are, let's say you have your own place to hunt, which for like recreational hunter, you have your own ground. That place would have to already be approved for a Win Mag. So someone from the police force would have to go out there to approve that farm for the acreage, and they would sign off and say, yeah, this is suitable for a Win Mag. If you weren't going to be going like to a guide. So a lot of people, what they'll do is that they will say that they're going to, and they will do it, but they'll be hunting other estates and so on, so that it's going to be easier for them to get a certain caliber, because they can turn around and say, yeah, we won't grant you the approval to do that. And here's the funny thing, that could still take anywhere from 3 months to a year for them to give you the approval on that. Incredible. So and this is kind of where we're at already. So and it's already like a slippery slope with everything, from that side, and it's crazy just kind of where we are. So, but here's the funny side of it. Like, all our rifles, like, we have, it's almost like the given where they want you to have silencers, suppressors on every single rifle.
Really?
Like, yeah. And that's the funny thing. Like, if you put an application, let's say I did want to get like a new Win Mag, and I didn't put in that I want to have, a suppressor, they would come back and say, why are you not wanting a suppressor? Because they don't want you to, make more of a noise than you don't need to for disturbing people in the area. Isn't that funny?
Crazy, because like over here, I don't know, you raise suspicions when you ask for a silencer.
Yes. You know what?
Yeah.
I tell you what's really interesting about all the stuff in the UK is the UK had a tradition of hunting. That was a big part of the royal family, a big part. But then it's so hard for the regular person to get to do what the elites and upper crust did all the time. And it's looked down upon by a lot of people, but the royal family was huge into hunting. I watched the series The Crown, and it was a TV show, of course, but it really showed all the outdoors. The Queen of England was a big outdoors lady. She loved to hunt and fish.
Yeah. It was a big deal, and it still is. I would say this is where it's kind of like, I guess, the king now. I mean, he raised his family. Back then, it was a big deal. But then this is where it's also, I would say, like a detriment to it, because what they've tried to do is just make this just a more outright class war, so that they don't want to acknowledge how many people out there that in the UK that hunt, that are just normal people. They work for the council. They're just, they're tradesmen. They're just normal people, whatever. It's not necessarily just lawyers and like kind of the aristocracy and so on. It's not, just like that. They want to create that it's more just the rich people that want to go out and, kill stuff and shoot stuff. And, they use now, I would say, more the example of the royal family just being able to do whatever the fuck they want and do that. But then what they fail to see is that, the good side of, obviously, from the, as you guys know over there, the conservation and everything else, everything that goes into managing the lands for that, for hunting, whether it's pheasants or, partridge, chukar, grouse, for deer, all these kind of things. It's like they're trying to kind of take away from all of the good things, because it's like, even now, his sons, obviously you got, Harry and William. Like Harry was probably 100%. They were some of, the biggest hunters there were. And then when he shacked up with Meghan, like he tried, she made him get rid of all his stuff. And for us, that was like, well, yeah, look at you, you've got your balls in her purse now. But then that was the shame of that, for someone to be able to make you do that. And it went against all of the good things that they would have done in their time, that they were all very proud to have done that and supported, some of the, things they did in Africa and everything else and so on. It was then becoming a bad thing, and they were looking down upon it. So there's a lot of stuff that changed with that. And I think now they're still trying to use that over here, that, oh yeah, it's just rich people that do this and that and everything. So anything they can do to kind of basically taint, hunting and, guns and everything. It's just, yeah, it's on a slippery slope. Like honestly, 20 years from now, are we still going to be able to, to hunt? Are we still going to be able to own guns? Honestly, I couldn't tell you.
How many, like on my street, my neighborhood, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 8. So there's 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 10 houses on the block I live on, and nine of the 10 houses have someone living in them right now. I'm going to bet you that on my block, I'm going to bet 9 out of them 10 houses have guns. 100% of the people that live on my street have a gun in their house. I would bet you. I would bet you on your block, everybody that has a house has got a gun in it. Andy?
I live in an old...
You do, but they have guns?
I don't know.
I'll bet you they do.
I don't know.
But how many on your block that you live in, let's say that there's 10 houses on your block. How many of them have a gun in the house, do you think?
I would say the only, this is where it's, I knew you were going to answer this. It's kind of funny. I would say I would know one other person on my block right now. We're in a small village, and it's funny because obviously everyone knows each other and stuff, but I'm like the local known, I'm the hunting guy. I'm that guy. It's got the trucks, obviously with a business that I have too, with being an outfitter, because of the whole, I would say I never had a deal like I do now since COVID, where there were so many people that were going to places they shouldn't be, or they'd never ventured before, because they were just going to normal places in towns and cities, wherever they were. People didn't really take notice, but then with people that especially those that move from those towns and cities to our smaller village. Obviously, I've got all the hunting in the area. Like we have everything leased, and especially on like where there's a big local estate. And it took me years to get on there as it is, and it's like right on my doorstep. Amazing hunting, and from everything from waterfowl to pigeons to to deer. It's an awesome place. But obviously we go out and we'll take clients out and we'll be like banging away somewhere all day with pigeons, which is obviously it's sport, but then it's crop protection too. Over here we're very big on like cereals, wheat and barley, and canola, you guys call it. I think we call it oilseed rape. So you have to be there to to do a service and everything else. But we'd go out and be shooting, and then there would be a post on the local group on Facebook, like, oh, what's all this banging, and then there would be people there. There's a couple definitely crazies where they have been so cut off from what goes on in the world, and they're like, oh, I see that it's a guy out shooting pigeons. And obviously we're a part of the community in here too, so you've got people where they're like, oh yeah, that's so and so just doing their job, and everything else goes with it. And then it's funny how I would then give a massive explanation, because I want to try and it's from more than anything else the safety point of view, that I want people to know. They're like, oh yeah, we know who that is, he's a good guy. But then those that don't, I want them to know that, hey, that you're just like, you've moved here, this is what goes on in the countryside, I'm legally doing what I'm going to do, so you can fucking like it, because I'm doing everything by the book. So this is me kind of saying, like, most importantly from a safety point of view. And I'm kind of, it's funny where I'm covering myself in the same aspect in a good way, and you get like a bunch of people are jumping on the post and they're supporting it and everything else. And it's just funny because like it just makes me laugh. Like when I'm out in Arkansas and I have like 8 or 10 guys, everyone's got tubes on, and we're like ringing out the shots everywhere. And I just, the next guide over is we're just blowing up the place. And it makes me laugh, because it's the same deal when I obviously hunt, geese over here too, in some places where the barrage of shots is like, whoa. And, you do, like, the next town over kind of hears it depending what way the wind's blowing. It's like, it's just kind of normal. But I swear, since COVID, nobody batted an eyelid about these things before. But now there's so many of these groups set up where people, like, they're so involved to want to do these. But then I would say over the last couple of years, those that are in the know, there's a lot of people, I would say, their perceptions slightly, well, I don't know if they change, but they understand and know what it is, and they're like, yeah, look, this is country life. What do you expect? This has always gone on. But before, there wasn't a group where you could bitch and moan on Facebook and, about this or whatever going on. It's just now people are more aware of these things. So it's kind of funny over, like, in this village, like, people like, no, oh yeah, that's the shooting guy, or that's the hunting guy, or like, oh, he's the guy that's always got like a bunch of like Americans or French or whatever it is going into a store, and it's funny because what a lot of people don't realize, like, especially you guys see it over there, small towns, like with all these outfitters bringing people there, they're staying in all the accommodation, they're eating out, they're buying stuff in the stores. If those people weren't there providing that, they wouldn't see the same level of traffic coming through there. So some of the same people, like, they get it, they're like, oh yeah, his clients are always staying in those lodges or that hotel. That otherwise, I mean, who's going to be there in Scotland between October and January? Horrible rainy wet weather in Scotland. Is like, oh yeah, our clients are there, like, holding that up, and hey, those people are employed, they're locally, from these villages and stuff. So it's amazing how many people over the years there have changed perceptions of, to accept it, whether they believe in it or like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's still a couple people, I've got one guy that, like, and he's, now other people jump on, like, the thread, and, like, he gets abuse for it too, for just being stupid. And I would say, I think since last summer, he calmed himself down a bit, realizing that it's like, hey, look, this is just part of it. And I'm like, yeah, until this, ever gets banned or anything, whatever it might be, this isn't going to change. So, you just have to accept it. But, like, there would, honestly, other than another guy that I know that does hunt with us occasionally, I know he has, guns, but like, I would honestly go as far as saying there would be fewer than 5 people, and that's probably like saying like a higher 5. It's probably just a couple that would be licensed gun owners obviously to have guns, like in this village. So it gives you an idea.
I'm going to bet you we're close to, in our little town we live in, I'm going to say 90% of the houses have a gun in it.
Probably pretty close.
And I'm going to bet you if you went nationwide over the whole United States, you'd probably be at 60 or 70%.
Well, it's grown since COVID.
Yes, a lot more gun owners since then. And when we got a Democrat in office, and I'm being political here, but
yeah, they're great for gun sales.
When the Democrats are in office, preppers and gun people buy shit like crazy. People hoard up crap. Yep. Are y'all going through work problems in Scotland? Like, are y'all having trouble finding people to work? Because we got more lazy fuckers in this country now than I've ever seen in my life. And I don't understand how they're surviving to have anything, because you cannot go anywhere. And there are businesses can't even open. There's a new casino they just built north of Wichita Falls. They've been trying to open it up for 6 months, but they can't staff the damn thing. It just blows my mind that people don't want to work, or nobody wants to work. I just can't believe people don't work because they don't want shit. Because you have to work to get stuff.
We're the same. The funny side of it is, I think we noticed this since COVID happened, that people got like a taste of what it was like not to work. Obviously, it was the same in the States. I think that people were getting government funding, and like they gave away like I was not one of the people or one of the company because of my business, what I do. Obviously, they don't like what we do, so I was one of the few ones that didn't get grants. And here's the deal: I didn't want fucking handouts anyway. I've always worked hard for my money, and I wanted the opportunity to be able to do everything I could to work. And do the best I could. I couldn't get that. But then there's all these people that are out there receiving, fucking crazy money. There was like a grant. So I believe the grants, you would get money and you didn't have to pay that back. But then there would be the loans as a business or whatever it was that you would get, money, I think, relatable to your size of your business. So, and then you would have X amount. And that's what's, fucked us over and will continue to do so for the years, like until, my kids have kids kind of deal, like until that money's going to be paid back. It's like they were able to just magically pluck the money out of there to do that. But there were so many people out there that have had the taste of getting money for doing nothing, and that they didn't, they've not wanted to go back to work. And I honestly see it now. And that's the thing, like what I would say pisses a lot of people off more, is that nobody they all want kind of it's money for nothing. They don't want to actually have to spend the time to work. And then I would say people's attitudes towards the jobs that they do have, like notice that like with service, like even some places I went to in the States, which kind of surprised me, that there was definitely a massive difference of like people that were good, or they either wanted to work, they were good at what they want were doing. I would say a lot of places where they just weren't, and like it was nuts in terms of how people just don't want to work. Especially over here, it just seems to get worse and worse. But then there's so many businesses still that are just closing down as well, because either they've not been able to get the trade, or as you say, the people to staff these places.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take to change.
I don't either. We're going to quit giving them shit away. Are y'all sending money to Ukraine like the United States does?
Yeah, that's where I was planning. It was just making me think about that when we're talking about like the idea of like money just being given out and so on. And yeah, it's like, everyone says the same thing, about looking on your doorstep first to take care of, those, it's not even a case of trying to be divisional and say, oh, you're not caring about other people. It's just being genuinely, and this is just my opinion on that, and being smart, that, taking care of what we have here before, if you're able to then, give to other, other countries or other, other crises or whatever it is. It's kind of, I don't know, again, it's almost like people, they want to do a good thing and kind of, it's like a dick measuring contest to say, well, I'm going to just try and give more than that country and make us look better. And then we'll like, well, okay, what about our country? Or what about people here or businesses here? And, it goes back to the whole thing with like, with veterans and, other with education and, other things where it's like I saw, what was it the other day, again on, I think, Instagram, where it was like it was saying how someone was going to be, I can't even remember what it was, but it's basically taking away something from something that needed the funds, something chronic, and they were like, no, we've taken the money away from there and we're going to put it over there to these people. And it's just like, what I think it was maybe defunding the police. I think that's what it was. I'm not sure which city it was, but I was just like, yeah,
Denver,
this is just crazy.
Denver, Colorado yesterday took $12 million out of their police budget to give it to illegals. I'll be honest with you, I'm 100%. I don't give two shits if we give a penny to Ukraine. Matter of fact, I wish we'd bill them for some money we've given them already. I really don't care. We don't owe them shit. They're not going to send money to Knox City, Texas if something happens to my fat ass. You know, they're not sending a damn thing to Scotland if something happens to you either. I'm tired of giving fucking money away. That's not our responsibility.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just like all these things, and like of course there's natural disasters that everywhere, and these things do happen. But yeah, it's funny how a lot of the governments, everyone wants to jump on, trying to be the savior, for something, and potentially without looking at everything else closer to home. The way a lot of people see it, other motives, etc., rather than actually just trying to do the good deed that it's meant to be in hand. So people find it hard to, take that seriously, that there's always an underlying motive for money for somebody else's pocket somewhere down the line. And, that the ass kissing that's going to go with it somewhere down there, who's going to benefit from that? But yeah, it just seems to get worse.
So how was your snow goose season this year?
It was definitely probably one of the strangest ones for all the hype that was meant to be. I went over there thinking it was just going to be fucking carnage every single day.
Yeah.
Gauging from how things were in the fall and, all the hype from everyone saying what the reports were and stuff, obviously way back. Last kind of summer deal. But honestly, with the weather, even I would say here in Scotland, it was one of the weirdest seasons for us too. That we had, it was the opposite for us, that we've never had so much rain. Like, even now still, it just seems to not stop raining, and it was super weird. Our birds were everywhere. We had a really good hatch, really good. You guys seem to have, it was super warm over there. Yeah. You had a lot of drought, or certainly Arkansas was. And then when we came over, I think it was the end of January, obviously with that bad weather, all the birds had pushed out. I noticed it too. We got there. We were obviously driving around a lot of leases, and we've been keeping in touch with a lot of farmers. Anyway, for the season, I was getting pretty good updates, and things were looking pretty good. And then it was like, oh man, yeah, the geese they've really pushed out. And I was keeping in touch with them, and they're like, oh yeah, it's still pretty slim. And then I was like, okay, it can't be that bad. And then I go over, and I was like, oh. Whoa, our first feed of the season, we found it was in one of our, leases there, and they jumped over to another bit where we got that place too. And it was like, okay, we got that locked down, we pretty early, and then other scouts were out, everyone's keeping in touch, and we're like, yeah, we're not seeing geese. And I'm like, what? I'm like, go check this pin. And then they're like, yeah, we're not. And I'm like, this is dumb. And before we knew it, even from the first day, there must have we were keeping, a guy over there, and by lunchtime, the amount of trucks that had been over, and then the landowner's phone was just blowing up. We had it was totally fine. We had no worries. But by the time the first day came, there probably had been every person possible, through there to try and get on this feed. And even then, it wasn't even anything crazy. It was at that point, it was more a case of being on a feed than it was trying to find the right birds. It changed pretty quickly. And then all of a sudden we were just inundated with birds, fucking huge feeds. And I honestly, everyone else is in the same boat where, you were having the birds blowing through, a lot, big feeds, lots of adults, and then it just seemed like they just pushed, and so many birds left, and then you're kind of waiting for some of the better feeds, and it wasn't honestly till damn near kind of end of the season time, which we were wrapping up, we were starting to get better better results. But even then, I would say it was nothing to kind of ride home by. We were giving our absolute all. Obviously you're bumping into other outfitters everywhere, and everyone's having the same kind of luck. Where we weren't consistent. You were having to like have a good couple of shoots to then get on like a real good one, and even still, it was like X amount of spins you were getting. But then, man, if you were taking it, the best you could. It was certainly wasn't what we thought it would be, but then when we did have some good hunts, as anything, it makes up for some of the tougher ones. But definitely one of the strangest seasons.
Well, so you think the cold weather at the end of January pushed them too far south for you guys, and then they were just delayed getting back up?
Yeah, definitely. It seemed that way to begin with. They were kind of delayed. Like I felt like they came back up really quickly. Like literally the kind of opener, kind of within the first week. Like the place was absolutely shit stacked where we were, and I would still say that they were kind of quite like staggered from like further south to like where we were too. But then birds just seemed to blow through, and then we got stuck with like, man, the most stalest adults you just could ever have for like it. That seemed to kind of almost go on for a while. And it didn't really change. It's almost like they weren't moving. And I think for a time there was no snow line from what I remember. Seems like a while ago now. And then obviously the weather did change up there, and it felt like we were kind of stuck with these adults for ages. And you were trying to do everything you possibly could. My God, every pattern like I could think of. It was like the Water Boys book. You're going in trying to pull like everything from there, and you're just like beating your head against the wall. And then there's the next day where it does all come together, and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And then it was like with adults too, not even a case of you're like, okay, well, why did they do that? We should have got our asses kicked. And then you find a decent feed, and then you try and do that again, or something similar or whatever, and they just kick your ass. And it was just honestly one of the weirdest ones. But yeah, definitely the weather. I mean, that had to play like a massive part in it. And it felt like all the, a lot of the birds, they were so mixed through. Like to begin with, there was a lot of juvies kind of mixed in with the, massive monster adult feeds. And it felt like whatever they were doing, they were just following, the adults. Right. Like it wasn't like, it was just honestly one of the weirdest ones. But then it wasn't until right near the very end, then you were starting to see some of the better birds in those feeds too. But end of the day, for me, it's like you need to do the best you can with what you have. With the adults, it's like you just have to kind of go with it. You can't just be always chasing or wanting just to chase juvies and stuff and have your cake and eat it. It's like, well, you got to do what you can with the adults. And yeah, I mean, we had some. I mean, for me, those are definitely some of the more rewarding shoots when you are winning them over. But yourself, man, what it's like dealing with those. You get kicked in the dick more often, than you do when you're dealing with juvies. But then yeah, it was tough. But then I know everyone else is going through the same thing, and you're fighting over feeds with like quite a few other outfitters, and then you've got someone else setting up another feed behind you, or there's not a feed behind you, but they're trying to cut you off, and just the usual stuff. But I mean, even still, for me, I love doing it. There must be something wrong with me, so like I'll keep coming back there as much as I can, and you got to take the good with the bad. It's just how it goes, chasing snows.
What's your degree between one, or not degree? What is your between 1 and 10 on a scale? What's your concern with them doing away with the conservation goose season? Because
you asshole, that was my question.
Oh, Texas has done away with the conservation goose season, and they said there's 8 other states that are fixing to follow suit. And I've heard through the rumor mill, Arkansas is one of them, and the people in Arkansas are going to throw raising hell and fit, and I don't blame them at all. But that is definitely a concern. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your concern on them doing away with the conservation order?
Well, hold on. First of all, it was a failure, right? Like the whole idea of a conservation order was to get the population back
under control. It hasn't worked at all.
Like it
hasn't helped.
It hasn't done anything, right?
Yeah. And the lobbyists are on there looking at all the carnage. And they see these guys killing 100, 300, 400, 500. They don't know guys go out and kill 0 a lot, or 5.
More often than not.
Yes, there's a lot more bad hunts than there are good hunts.
Yeah.
But Texas was the first one, and they said the federal government, all they were waiting for was one state to to do it, and Texas stepped up and did it, which it wasn't affecting Texas that much anyways.
And Texas is not a mecca for
like it used to
conservation
be.
orders.
When it first started, it was, but
South
it's not
Texas.
anymore. Yes. But so what is your thoughts on that and your concerns?
Yeah, that I would say that would be, it should be a concern. It should be a concern for everybody because of, like, I can't help but think of all the stuff that's happened to us in the UK and the Europe. And I think that's, like, we've seen these things happening more so. And I think for me, I struggled. I remember when I first heard about this, and I thought, yeah, this is never gonna, happen, because I didn't think, because of the fact there's meant to be so much of the data that's collected, but the way that I was looking at, obviously, all the the groups, like, that you could see stuff coming up with the guys that do hunt snows down in Texas, where I know there's a couple of guys that they do it in a really good way, and it's been super cool to follow that over the years. But then they've been very apparent and in sharing what was on the cards, and I think from what it looked like was that, which is super dumb, that whilst all of the facts and the evidence, the data and everything was there to show otherwise, it's like, in terms of I guess places where they should be going out to, check numbers with the planes, whatever it would be. I mean, obviously, anyone who fucking knows waterfowl, if you're going at the wrong times or the wrong areas, you're not going to see anything near what you should be, right, of what's giving you the most accurate, up-to-date, details. But let's not kid ourselves. If this is already, if this has already been like a done deal where they already want to prove, this is just my take on it, if they're wanting to prove, away from this. It's funny how facts and data can be so important when people want them to be, but if they're not doing that in the correct manner, all that's doing is giving like a false fucking reading of that, which is looking like that was always going to be the case, that they were pushing for this result that they've got. And even though that people are the ones that are trying to fight that, it's funny. I mean, I couldn't believe that it went the way it did, because over here, like in the UK, we are the hunting community, we're the minority, we're used to getting fucked. Everything bad always happens, and I would say the data and information is there, and they choose to ignore it. And I can't help but think this is exactly what's happened over there, and I think this is where it's a slippery slope to see. And I think from looking at comments and everything else, and then speaking to other people about this, I remember bringing this up when I was over there, and I remember hearing other people being like, no, it'll never happen. I'm like, well, what if it does? Right. And I was like, we'll see what happens. And I remember hearing about it, and I was like, wow, yeah, this is really, really happening. And then you could see all the comments from other people, like people that are, I would say top of their game with this. And, it was interesting to see, what they were saying about things as well. And in terms of whether this could happen elsewhere, and I think you've got your head in the sand if you think this couldn't be a concern in other states. And I'm not even from there. I'm from, obviously from Scotland. So my advice from that side is that, I would love to think that nothing like that could ever happen over there, especially when you have all the data which you guys are used to using for, making all of the limits for different states, etc., where it's so, there already. For anyone to want to ignore that, you kind of have to, ask the question, like, why is that the case? But then at the same time, I guess they're saying, oh yeah, it's not really done anything for it. But then, well, then if that's the case, then why would you then try and take it away? If you're already going to look at the good side of things, of what that does. I guess you could argue Texas, how many people are going there to hunt snows versus other states where, people, like, it's giving an extension to the season, February into March, and then all the other states, all these little places, like I was saying here in Scotland, that are filling up with people that are going there in a time they wouldn't normally. It's more than just the, what it is, the conservation order. Because let's not kid ourselves, if you look at that too, it's the same principle. This is why I say snows and pinks are so similar. Where the population's going over in Iceland, they're looking at, oiling eggs and gassing birds because the population's getting out of control. So they could turn around and say that, like, if that's really what they wanted to do all those years ago, should that have been something they should have been looking into doing? Whether that's the right thing or not to do, but like here we are, the conservation order, and which I think is pretty awesome for what it is, and everything else, and what it's led to, and it really has become something. I mean, you could still argue both ways of what that has become. If it is also a shit show, like a lot of people do, see it to be or whatever. But then, if that's where you're at now, rather than, like I saw a lot of people saying too that, looking towards putting limits on it in others, like likes of Arkansas and other places too, maybe that is it's better to try and save it
Compromise.
than have it, change completely, but I would say, yeah, like honestly, where that is now, I'd be like 6, 7, like in terms of concern, because like if it's true what they were saying that all it took was for Texas to go that way, who's to say that isn't going to follow up with Arkansas or Kansas or South Dakota or wherever it's going to be? I really hope not. That wouldn't be the case, because I myself, I love going there, and it's like you said, it's not always triple digit barrel burning hunts. I mean, I've had my ass kicked many times, and some of the the greats out there too, that I know that they anyone who says any different it's a fucking liar. And so it's not like they're getting burned up all the time. But then, I can't see why you would want to change that if the numbers are so extreme as what they are. Mm-hmm. If that's something else is adding to it. But then does that mean they're going to look at other things, like I was saying, with like oiling and gassing? Because, I mean, that's what they do in Holland. It's a big deal. I mean, it's funny that animal rights groups target certain people and everything else and groups, but like gassing the geese in Holland is fucking crazy, because there's no hunting over there. They do that in such a massive way. And is that like one of the most unethical things? Fuck yeah. Mm-hmm. For anything. But yet they've done that, and that's how they keep things in check. And I would hate to see or them think that would be something that they would want to do for them. I mean, we're hunters, but we care about the birds, and I would rather see people hunting them than doing that. But it's like, yeah, I honestly could see, I hate to say it, I mean, I didn't think that would change, and I guess it did, so it's a concern.
I think that the numbers deal, if the numbers aren't going down and we're killing all these birds, then I don't understand what the problem is and why they want to remove it.
Right, because what's it going to be like whenever they remove this hunting?
I still think there's going to be the same amount of birds.
You think so?
Yeah,
But I mean, here's the deal: like, for Mother Nature to keep her population in order, she has to inflict like diseases. So you're going to have like massive die-off. So what's better, all of these snow geese dying of disease and starving to death, or with hunters bringing stuff into the local economies and keeping that population where it is?
Why did the birds? Why did we not have this mass number of birds 100 years ago?
Because of starvation and disease.
And they took care of themselves.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, the birds
agriculture practices changing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's more grain on the landscape now.
There's more food. Yes, there's more food and there's more habitat for them, and so we've helped increase those numbers. The snow goose is an Arctic Circle deal, so we're not changing habitat up there at all.
Well, and they're eating themselves out of house and home up there.
They've been saying that for 30 years, just like I've been waiting for this little ice age. My whole life I've heard this story. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I've been hearing this same shit for years. I'm waiting still for this little ice age.
I'm ready for it. I've got the clothes.
But the numbers are not changing. If 15% of all mallard drakes die every year and 15% of snow geese die, whether the people are shooting them, they're dying of disease, they're still going to die. So I think they should keep this deal on. Texas was an anomaly to this whole thing because Texas don't winter no birds on the coast like they used to. It's all parking lots and houses now.
Right, and that's what Kristian was saying with data. Like, the people collecting the data can make it look like whatever they want it to look like if they've already got the outcome in their head.
Right,
exactly.
And it was a push. We could have done some snow goose hunts this year
for about a week.
Maybe 2 weeks.
Right.
We had a couple of fields that were loaded with snow geese here after season was over. But we ain't fucking with it because we don't want to.
Well, and I mean, we also didn't bang on them. Like, if you go out there and start banging on them,
yes,
you could push them out of the area. So we had birds here for 2 weeks longer, but we weren't applying any pressure.
No,
we could have gone out there and 2 hunts later, They
Yes.
could have gone wherever.
But we didn't care about shooting them either. It's just
Right.
not in our wheelhouse, nothing to do. But they're here today and gone tomorrow. Well, they hang up in Arkansas depending on what the weather does. Some years they leave early, some years they stay longer. So they still have, there's a reason to shoot them in Arkansas like that. One of the biggest proponents is you've got guys like Larry Gore that used to be an outfitter down there, and I saw his post on Instagram the other day of a picture in South Dakota where someone had shot 100 or 200 or 300 birds, and he goes, "This is the carnage that we don't need in the spring. You know, how good is it for the birds?" So he's obviously not on the side of having a spring snow goose season, and there are guys like him out there that keep putting that out there, and they, you know, I think the birds have way too much pressure on them, the snow geese. But they do not have very long memories, and we noticed that when we were in Saskatchewan last year. They were shooting teal. I mean,
Yes.
they just come right in. I mean, it wasn't no circling or nothing. They just right into the decoys.
Snows in October are a totally different animal.
Yes. But I don't know what the answer is, but I do think that you're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years that there will be no more conservation snow goose
You think
season.
so?
I think so. The way things go, that's just a trend.
What scares me about this is you never get something back once they take it away, and it's
Yes.
always what can we take next?
But they added that on. That's a new thing.
Right?
The spring snow goose hunting has only been going on for what, 15 years?
No, longer
20
than
years?
that. I remember
20, I
doing.
think
I remember
so.
doing it as a teenager.
Well, you're 36.
It wasn't that long ago, Jeff.
20 years ago.
But anyway, like, yeah, but we're also in a different. Eat his ass, Ollie.
That's not Tony.
We're also in a different political climate than we were 20 years ago when they start. Like, like you said, we are becoming the minority quickly. And, you know, as they start taking things away, what's going to be the next thing that they take away? Because it's not like it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I'm meaning. The concern there, like examples for us, would be the biggest one of all from years ago, the handguns.
Yeah.
There was one, I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's a school shooting anywhere, it doesn't matter where it is in the world, is never a good thing, but it happened once, and goodbye handguns. And they, like, like we say here, once it goes, it never comes back. That was a perfect example. It's never, you know, fox hunting is another one, like we talked about that before. Like, even since we spoke last, now we were the last place where you could do fox hunting, you could run hounds. You can't, not like the horseback or any of that kind of gentry kind of deal. You had to flush them towards, teams of guns. They stopped that now too. So like these are like things where I would say they're making those changes, but these are unfortunately things we've seen in the UK and kind of Europe where it's more normal for us of all people to lose these rights and these changes and, you know, certain things you can no longer hunt. And that's why I could never believe it could happen in the States. Like, this is like, I honestly say, like, I kind of agree with Jeff on that one. That's why I think it is a concern that if they can do that, like, I never thought it would happen. You know, where is that going to lead? And I think you're right from there that, like, it's a case of whether you're going to get something back again. Yeah, I honestly think once you go down the road of having it taken away, like, you know, you're not going to get it back.
Yeah.
Of what you're saying with the light that we're seeing. And I get it, and what they're saying too with, you know, absolute carnage. You're shooting, you know, I mean, when you do have a good shoot, you have a good shoot, but don't get me wrong. Again, in between that, how many tough ones have you had to get to where you're shooting 200 or 400 or 500 or whatever it might be? How many of those shoots do you see happening, you know, nowadays? And even still, how many times versus, let's say, some guys jumping a field where those guys are probably shooting more than you are from someone that's, you know, putting the work into hunting from a spread. End of the day, it's like you see all the arguments. Both those guys are still in the right for doing what they're doing. End of the day, if this goes back to like saving the tundra and the whole habitat, you know, argument, like you're saying, then everyone's in the same boat. But then I can see it now where people might look at that differently. Like, I didn't see that from my point of view. Like, obviously over here we're gauged and judged so much, like I was telling you with like my local village, you know, with my hunting and stuff, what I get up to and how I have to kind of, you know, almost set, you know, an example. I didn't really think it was as notable over there that people really, you know, gave a fuck about exactly how things do, you know, go down over there. Like, it's over, like the whole, and some guys were saying, yeah, I mean, people, like, a team of gun, everyone's got mag extensions, going out there, it's carnage. That's just what I've been used to doing over there, and it's almost hard for me to believe that people over there would be like, oh yeah, that's actually not a good deal. But I do say, and I would say the same over here, is that like people in the shooting community, I tell you, or the hunting community, can be like our own worst enemies. I think a lot of the time, sometimes calling people out rather than like sticking with each other, sticking, up for each other and stuff can sometimes be the worst. Don't get me wrong. If it's something that is like a really shit deal, like that thing with the, the wolf last week or whenever it was, with what that guy was, had kind of done. Yeah. It's like, yeah, not a hunting person, not, a good deal in any shape or form there, but like, a different kind of sets that aside from other people, that just because there's a certain kind of hunting that you maybe don't agree with, end of the day, we should all be kind of, trying to, look out for each other and, kind of stay united in that.
Yeah, I'm against reintroducing the wolf. I think it's going to be terrible for what they do to the agriculture and just the wildlife in general, but treating a wolf that way, like duct taping it and then beating it with a fucking bat they filmed it too, didn't they?
It was stupid deal.
I didn't watch it. I've seen the articles, but I mean, no animal deserves that treatment. Whether you agree with them being reintroduced or not, like that gives nobody's going to win in that situation.
No, 100%. I mean, that's like kind of. But then I think that was the deal of it. They were trying to kind of mask that as being a hunter, and that's kind of where the damage is already done. And I would say as much that over the years, that's where I've seen the changes. This is from our outlook to like looking at that in the States, where I didn't think people could. I just thought hunting was such a big deal over there, but yeah, it seems to be all the crazies that we have on our side of the pond. Like there's becoming more and more of them, on your side of the pond, where like they are starting to look at these things and go like, you know what, I don't agree with that. And that from an ethical point of view, and that's where some guys had brought that up to me when I was in Arkansas. We were just talking about stuff, and I was like, oh wow, I never really thought anyone would kind of, end of the day, it was the conservation order for what it is, but it's like they're trying to do something. This is what, if you're going to go out and do it, this is how it goes down, from that side of things. But then if people are trying to say, well, yeah, okay, but we should be looking to introduce limits or everything else or whatever, I guess everyone's got their reasons behind it, that, trying to protect what is there, from that side of things. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see in the next few years just how things do pan out, and, from that side of things. So I honestly don't know.
One of the problems I have with the conservation order, or not a problem I have, just something I've noticed, is that I don't have a problem if they put it on a 30 bird limit. Put 30 birds on it. That's what your limit is for the day. Because that's a great shoot. If you have 5 guys killing 150 birds, that's a great hunt. But the problem is all we're doing is targeting the young juvenile birds. We don't target any of the adult birds. So all we're doing is killing the young birds every year, and then the adult birds are living, and then we got 20-year-old and 25-year-old birds up and down the flyway. That's our problem. They need to figure out a way to get rid of the adult birds.
Yeah,
whether
but you can't. How are you going to do that?
They're
too fucking smart.
Let me finish. You can go up to the Arctic Circle, and you can wipe out a bunch of adult birds.
So now you're talking about doing what Holland does.
Well, I didn't say. Well, but if that's what you're worried about, though, that would be something that would help, because if you would wipe out. Let's say you figured out a way to wipe out 50% of the adult birds. Those juvenile birds that are coming down and stuff, they're huntable everywhere you get. Once them juvenile birds get around some adult birds, you can't shoot them. They're too damn smart. And that's the problem, is all we're doing is taking away the stupid ones every year. We're killing the dumb birds. And you're getting all these, the older birds are smarter than hell, and they don't ever get jacked with. You do kill some mature birds sometimes, but the majority of them are juveniles. And I hear guys all the time, found a big feed of juvies, found big feed of juvies. Well, that's what they're killing all. So all we're doing is killing all the young resources out. And eventually that's going to catch up to us.
Or the old birds die of old age.
That's what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, there are tons of snow geese that are 25 plus years old flying around. And that's crazy to think about. And that's one of the problems. That's why the the spinners work so good on dove. Dove don't live but a year and a half, 2 years. So it's all new to them. A snow goose has seen it all. Yeah. Those older birds have. So all we're doing is killing the young birds. and I don't know the answer to that, but that's one of the problems I see with this whole problem. Not just a problem that I have, a problem I see is all we're doing is harvesting young juvenile snow geese all the time. You know, and I'm going to catch flack. Somebody says, I shoot big adult birds. I'm sure you do shoot some mature birds, but the majority of snow geese killed. How many of the birds do you kill? What's the percentages of mature to juvies?
Probably like 70-30.
Yeah, really?
So it's that way all the time. It's everywhere. It's that way. You look at those big pictures, and it's mostly juvie birds. So all we're doing is killing the dumb bastards.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think that's where it all comes down to, like, almost every season's completely different. And I guess it all relates back into it again in terms of, like, what, you know, I mean, you could argue about the gear, and you could argue about, you know, the ratio. That's why I was saying this, you know, this season was obviously, you know, not what people expected from there. But yeah, I mean, you're pretty much like absolutely right in terms of, you know, if everyone's just trying to target the juvies and pound them, because obviously they're going to be an easier target than the adults. But then it's funny how, I guess, over the years you could look at like the shift in the way that everyone's kind of perceived that too, like in terms of from the north all the way down to the south, with, you know, it's almost like when they're on their journey down here, they seem to get the absolute shit, you know, kicked out of them before they make it down to the south. But then you could look at the limits that are what, like 20 and 50, you know, up there, and it's like by the time they get further down, how many times have they been hunted? How many spreads have they seen? So it's like you could kind of argue saying that, like, up there, it's almost like they all behave as if they're juvies. It's like when they go back up again, it's almost like those same adults that you're hunting become completely different birds. You know, I don't know how well conditioned they are, but then it's like you could almost go around in circles with the whole thing. But that's kind of, I guess, an interesting point that you said there. I guess that if you are just shooting juvies all the time, you know, you could still say, well, you know, if there's that many adults, they're obviously going to keep producing, I guess, as many young from there. But then, like you said, with the population, you know, how much that changes, and then I guess depending on the weather too, whether it's been a good hatch or what. But then, yeah, is the population getting out of hand as you kind of say it is?
I don't know. I mean, it's a
slippery slope, but it's something that's going to be addressed in the next couple of years, and I think we're probably going to be shocked when we see what the next state is that folds and quits doing it.
You mentioned that you kind of had like your Waterboy playlist thing. Do you have to do that with the pinks in Scotland, or is it pretty well cut and dry the way you're going to do things?
I would say it kind of goes the same. That's why I love, you know, hunting snows. They're so similar. I would say that snows still can sometimes, like the adults, it's very comparable to like our adults over here with the pinks. I mean, like they can just be super smart. Obviously, yeah, you still get, you know, a lot of juvies as well, but I think they can become pretty smart. I mean, depending what the birds are doing in the area. I mean, obviously we winter, you know, thousands, but then I've noticed over the last kind of 10 years that you can lose them pretty good too. Like they used to, even if the weather was really bad, they would still stay. They would never really leave. But now they start to push really far south. They didn't used to do this, but they've realized the weather is really good. So a lot will actually push really far south to begin with. And then we'll fill in a little late. I mean, we're talking a couple weeks later, but then we'll hold birds crazy. Then if we get really bad weather, they push out. And then, you know, it's a case of, you know, they'll come back, but you'll find that you'll then be more often than not stuck with a lot of adults. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you might be chasing some of the same, like, I don't know, kind of 10,000 in one area and then 20,000 in another area where they do start to get super smart. And you're going to have to change it up. And I think that's, for me, that's why I'm, you know, I guess over the years working with Dive Bomb and, you know, being able to, I guess, build my spread to what it is now. that is like absolutely like my back pocket tricks, where I can just change that from any number. Like we'll run as little as maybe like 2 dozen
Really?
in late season. Yeah. Like up to like literally kind of 60 dozen the next day. As where before you could have got away with like, you could have just got away with, I don't know, 4 or 5 dozen quite consistently. But now over, like, even though there's not the same, number of guides, the hunting pressure from, just from us, it can get pretty high. So you're having to kind of constantly think of something different and change it up all the time. And I would say sometimes for me, it's worked out pretty good. We've been running similar spreads that we do in here in Scotland, over in Arkansas, when it comes to like running silhouettes, that is obviously just with full bodies over there, but doing kind of something similar. And it's come in clutch, quite a few times. But then the next day, that was this year for me, which was a good learning curve, that you're like, that's working. And then you go and do something, and then you're like, oh, fuck, just, complete disaster. And then you go and do something else. And, sometimes even though you think you've taken everything in consideration, and for whatever reason, you're just left scratching your head, and you kind of have to go back to the drawing board. But I think that's why I like snow so much, because they are so similar. But, like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I do post a good picture in terms of the way they work.
I love watching your stuff.
Good video. Yeah, and it's cool, and it's like, it is really good. But equally, we do, like, anyone would be lying if they said they don't get the tough days. We absolutely do, and I don't hide it. One thing I don't do is I don't really put as many pictures like of piles and stuff, because I don't think they give a good representation of how a hunt can be. I would rather base a hunt on my ability to be able to work the birds in. We have big mobs. I want those things to finish in your face. I want there to be the show. But like, there'll be times where I might have like a 6 to 8K feed, and they might come in 2 or 3 lots. Mm-hmm. So if I've got 6 guns, 8 guns, maybe they've never shot them as close. Maybe the whole show is completely overwhelming, and we shoot like 12 or 8 or 6. Can you define a hunt by, a shitty pile pick? Well, no. And that's why, like, as people did ask me, like, oh yeah, you can't be shooting them. And I'm like, we are. But, I'd rather show a representation of, a video of how it can be. Same with, like, I'll share videos where we do shoot, like, a small pack of 5, or, like, a really small pack comes in or whatever, and we only shoot a couple. It's hunting. It happens. But, like, you have to be prepared for everything. I'd rather shoot 20 decoyed birds in my face over like 80 birds that were shot like 60 to 70 meters high that weren't really finishing over the decoys. I'll take that smaller number all day long.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have to have plugs over there, just like here?
We do. Yeah, it's 3 shots we're limited to. So the only time you can use a mag extension would be on grey lags, because they're actually they actually technically have no season, just because they have in certain places got out of hand. So they're on what's called a general license. So you could, shoot them out of season as long as you had a reason for. So whether like they're damaging your crops, or, from that kind of point of view, there's species you can shoot like that out of season. So you can actually use mag extensions on those. But I mean, you're never going to be in a situation where you're going to have like thousands of grey lags coming in where you could do some carnage. That being said, you will get small groups that will decoy, and if you can shoot, you will actually mop up, a good number, and you'll find the resident birds, they're like pockets of 200 or 300 around the place, and they will come out and cause damage. So if you can go out and do that, it's a pretty handy way of doing it, but you're not going to have like a massive spin of like 20K coming in where you can just let loose and give it send it to Jesus kind of style. It's it's not like that.
One of your videos on Instagram, you were calling in Roe Bucks. How does that work? Like, what is he coming for?
Yeah, so he like it's pretty cool. That's like been quite a big one just this last kind of couple months. I think we've been doing some films. In fact, I'm actually wearing my buddy's hat, Abandoned Outdoors. So he came over and filmed a good bit of the rut last year. So it's like basically a whistle where you're trying to either mimic the sound of like the Roe kid, so a baby, in distress. And like, so the doe, she would come running in to like try and, obviously look out for the kid. And if like it's the rut time, if you're going to have a doe, you're probably going to have a buck. So you're trying to call the doe in, but the buck's more likely going to be hounding, the doe. So he'll come hammering in after the doe. But then you can do different sounds where you can actually mimic the doe, where it's like she's being harassed by another buck. So you've got a territorial one. Obviously, he wants to, get his end away, and he's going to come hammering in, thinking there's like another buck trying to get on a doe. So it's pretty cool because like you can see in the videos, they can like come in super close.
Yeah, he looked pissed, is what he looked. Like he was.
Yeah, like it's pretty cool. They're like they almost come in like either they have to be on, or it's either on or it's not. And I think it depends on the weather too, how that goes down, and it can be super crazy. And they'll want to come in, and they'll either want to fight or fuck, one of the two. And it's pretty cool. Like we had. In fact, one of the next videos that was coming out with like my other guide and the other hunter at the time, they were obviously on a stand and they were calling, and I was trying to actually film on the drone. I don't know if we managed to get all the footage or not, but like at one point there was like nothing, and then it was like I think there was like 3 or 4 bucks coming, like hammering at them like different directions. I was watching on the drone, so where I was away from the guys, and I didn't where they were in this kind of point. I think they could only focus on one, but it was really cool. Almost looked like, that scene out of Jurassic Park where the raptors are coming in from different sides, and like you can see them from like a bird's eye view. And I could see all this kind of happening, and like I was trying to watch from afar from my my binos, and I could see. I was like, I don't think they can see this. So it was pretty cool, but the wind was up, so I couldn't really hear anything. But yeah, it was going pretty crazy, and I think they had like a buck and a doe come hammering in at them, and they'll sometimes come in so close they like almost hit you. And I think they actually spooked those ones, but then there was others coming in, and they I think they went 2 for 2 out of that as well. So that'll be kind of cool to see the whole film with that put together.
Yeah, that's badass. Do they taste very good? They do.
They are super good. Like honestly, one of the nicest. They're not too strong, so anyone that doesn't really like, anything that's too gamey, it's like a really good meat. But like, yeah, I would say they're kind of, really tasty venison.
So not as gamey as like your regular venison.
Yeah, not like a red stag or anything. I would want to say it would be. I think some of the guys have compared it to like to pronghorn.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Right.
But honestly, it's just like I would say like really good beef.
Now, have you had whitetail over here?
We don't know.
We've you ever eaten it when you were over here?
Oh, yeah, I think I have. I would say it would be kind of like, I would say not as, like, certainly like not as strong as that, I would say.
How does whitetail and like stag compare to one another?
I would say they'd be a little bit more similar.
They would be?
Like they would be a little. You would definitely know that'd be like. I mean, even then, I didn't think it was too crazy in terms of. I didn't think it. I mean, I love all game anyway, so it doesn't really. I don't feel like it's too overpowering for me anyway. But I would say like red stag, depending, especially when you would eat it, it can be really strong. The closer you get to the rut, and it's like. Yeah, almost not even worth eating kind of from there. You'd rather eat like a doe, a hind, as we call them, a hind over a stag, like, all day long. But I would say a whitetail was still probably better tasting, than a stag would be.
Yeah, that's the way it is over here with the whitetail. When you get to the rut, like it's just pumped full of testosterone, and they've been fucking running, so all their fat reserves are gone, and different animal whenever you eat them during the rut.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I would say it kind of seems to be kind of similar, these things, and so much. It's kind of cool to see just kind of similarities and so on, how they are. But yeah, I'd say the females, the hinds, they would eat better than certainly than a stag would.
Yeah,
better than eating haggis, I bet.
I don't know.
Hey, Haggis, man, we're gonna get when you come over. I'm gonna take you guys out, and we're gonna like go for like a proper haggis time.
I want to eat it and try it. I've got a kid coming to work here this year. He's from Louisiana, Hunter, and he told me he's gonna bring a bunch of crawfish and stuff down here when he comes to work. He's like, I can cook it all and stuff. I said, Andy's always wanted to eat Nutra. He goes, okay, I'll get one of them for Andy to eat. So we're gonna try some Nutra, and I'm gonna try it with you.
It's like Anthony Bourdain said. How many chicken anuses are in a chicken McNugget? You know,
probably a bunch of them.
He said, I'm not saying that there are any, but would you be surprised if there were? He's like, haggis?
Yeah.
It's just the liver and what? I mean, it's just all the innards, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's all the offal, all the kind of bits and pieces that, like, honestly, like, if you were to think, like you said, kind of like we would say the same thing with McDonald's, like, arses and eyelids. And it's like, you know, all the things that if you were to have those to try and eat them yourselves, you wouldn't touch them. But when it's in the haggis, like just as a oneer, honestly, man, it's like a lot of people, I would say, they come over and they're like, everyone wants to try it, but the amount of people that actually like it, they'll do them as like kind of appetizers, and they're in like almost like a breaded like mushroom or like a, you know, a gator bite or something, and they're like in there and with a whiskey cream sauce. Seriously, they're super good.
I'd try it. Listen, Kristian, you're a great guy. It's always fun talking to you. We've gone on 2 hours now. Your Roe Buck season starts when? Next week?
Yeah. I mean, it's technically, here's the weird deal. Like over here in Scotland, this is where things change a lot. They actually took away our deer seasons for male deer in Scotland. So we actually have technically no season for both Roe Buck, red stag, I guess sika and fallow too, here in Scotland, because of the government. We have so many deer that they basically they want to try and put more into having like more forests all over. They just want to plant trees everywhere. So obviously they want to try and remove as many of the deer as they can. So they took away the seasons. So it's a bit of a deal, but the majority of people that are obviously real hunters and like, you know, conservationists, they're sticking to the seasons. So the old season would have been the 1st of April. So whilst it's technically begun, I don't like to get going until like about the last week or so of April. And then I'll run through to the end of June. And then usually July, they lay up before the rut begins in August. And then we kind of get going in August, you know, for a couple weeks in the rut. So yeah, from next Thursday, we've got our first guys coming. We've got 2 groups coming in, a regular from Sweden, and then a couple of guys from Michigan. I think they're coming from.
So we fucking go. You fucking April to June, and then August to February, and then March to now, and not much time off, my friend.
Yeah, exactly that. And then I'm actually going to be heading to New Zealand in, I think, the 3rd week of June. So we're going over to hunt waterfowl over there.
That'll be fun.
Well, y'all have a good time. You be safe, my friend. We look forward to meeting you in person and shaking your hand. Hopefully it's in Scotland. That's where we want to go. Take care.
Yeah, well,
have a pint on me.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Look forward to it. And yeah, thanks for having us on, guys. It's a pleasure as always.
A pleasure. Keep putting out that good stuff on Instagram. I love watching it.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Have a nice night. Have a nice night.
Yeah, you.
Great dude.
He is.
Great guy.
Fun guy. Fun guy to talk to. 6-hour time difference. 6 o'clock over there. He's getting ready for dinner, Jeff.
I'm trying to drive with my left hand shifting would be really tough for me.
Yeah,
at first.
you know, you think it'd be easy just because you can drive stick, but I've never done it with my
left hand would be a lot different.
Left hand.
I was really thinking about 3 on the tree on the left hand. That would have really been weird to do.
At least he said the gas and the clutch are the same.
Yes, that way I could handle that.
But I don't know if I could gas with my left, clutch with my right, and
boy, Europe's got some ugly cars too. They're either $300,000 state of the art Porsche, BMWs, McLarens, whatever it is, or they're them little box squared looking things that all them they drive in Russia too.
Right,
looks like crap. All right, let's get out of here. Thank y'all so much for listening to us. We appreciate you. Thank you to our sponsors. Have a great day or have a great weekend. God bless. Bye.
Love you. Bye. Watch for deer. Go check out our Patreon. And go check out all of our great sponsors. Mallard Bay, if you're in the market for another waterfowl hunt, or any outdoor adventure, check them out. Double T British Kennels, Mossberg, Stanfield Outfitters, Alpha Outdoor Specialties, Hemp Hill Farm, BHP is the promo code there, Ducks Unlimited, Lucky Duck, MLR Graphics, Boss Shot Shells, Pacific Calls, BHP 25, Dive Bomb Industries, Dirty Duck Coffee, Shin Gear, and the Looking Glass Podcast.